I'm Jimmi Buell. I'm the Family Consumer Science Agent here in Polk County. And this is Renay Knapp. She's my counterpart, the Family Consumer Science Agent in Henderson County. So we're tag teaming to teach this meat canning class. So welcome.
Okay.
So how many have you tried canning meat yet? Okay. So this is a first for a lot of people. Okay. Well, hopefully we're going to give you some good information, and you can take that and turn that into some products for your family. I think first we probably need to talk about the canners. First, the different types of canners, and we've got several different types, and I'm going to let Renay talk about that.
So there's two actual different types of pressure canners that is safe for canning vegetables, meat, soups, stews, and seafood. So all of those products are a low acid food, so they need a high temperature, and you're going to get that in the pressure canner. You can't get it in the hot water bath. With the pressure canner, you're going to get up to about 240 degrees. With a hot water bath, you're only going to get up to 212 degrees. So there's two types. There's the dial gauge, and this one has the dial on it that goes from 0 to caution. So you want to maintain it at the pressure that your recipe recommends. And then there's two different types of weighted gauges. This is one of or the older one. This is a Miro, and it has this type of weight on it. And it's a round disc, and it has holes in the center of it. And you find 5, 10, or 15 pounds, whatever your recipe calls for. Now here in Polk County, we don't. You don't have to adjust for altitude, so we're going to pressure on 10 pounds of pressure. In Henderson County, we have to adjust for altitude because we're a little bit higher, and so we have to go up to the 15 pounds. With the dial gauge, you adjust by adding pounds to it. So rather than 10 pounds, you automatically go ahead and add 1 to it. So you would do it on 11 pounds. So, and then in Henderson County, in higher elevations, we would add another pound to it. So whatever pounds you need, you find the hole, and that goes on that. This will jiggle 2 to 3 times a minute, and that's the way that you know that you've got 15 pounds of pressure is when it jiggles. So this is a Presto gauge. And they have another dial gauge canner that looks very similar to this, but it has the dial, which is like this, over to the side, and I think this is moved over closer to the off center. This one has the weight, and this is 5, 10, and 15 pounds. And the way that you get the different weights is this one you squeeze the weight. So this is 5 pounds. You add a disc, and that makes 10 pounds, and then you add the third one, and that makes the 15 pounds. So when you put this one on, it is a constant rocking. So I sometimes say it's like a hula dance. So those are the different kinds of pressure canners. There is neither of these are better than the other. It's whatever your preference is. With this one, you have to watch it to make sure that it maintains the poundage. This one, you have to listen to make sure that it's 2 to 3 times a minute. This one is just a constant rocking sound, but you don't want it too fast and you don't want it too slow. So you want to maintain the pressure on all of them, and if it should happen to drop below or kind of go still and everything, you have to readjust the heat on your stove and get it back up to the pressure that you need it. And then you start the processing time all over again. So if any of them were to drop below the 10, 15 pounds that your recipe calls for, you have to go back to to the very beginning and start your time all over again, reset your timer. So the way that we do with the pressure canner is they're over on the stove. Jimmy's already got them set over there, and we'll move over there once we get the chicken in the jar. You start out with 1 to 2 inches of water in the bottom with a rack, and the rack is very important because you want that rack in the bottom to elevate the jars off that direct contact with that heat from your heating stove element to, my Vanna here. So that the heat doesn't cause your jars to break. So, and then the water is not going to go over the top of the jars or anything. We're creating steam in there. So, and then we'll put the jars in, lock the lids down so they don't explode, the canners don't explode or anything like that. And then we vent it. We want to drive all the steam out or all the air out and start creating steam in there. So we're going to vent it for about 10 minutes. And on this canner, there's this little pop-up valve here. Will pop up after 10 minutes, and we know then that it's time to put the weight on. Okay, then we'll just drop that on there. And then when it comes to the rocking, or back up to on the dial up to 11 pounds, that's when we start the processing time. So,
what happens if you don't have a rack in there? What would you do?
You can find probably something like a cake cooling rack, anything that would fit in the bottom.
Oh, okay.
At one time they suggested, folded dishcloths or things like that. I tried that, and that is not a good idea because there's enough air in the dishcloths and everything that it kind of floats around. So, but like a cake cooling rack, you can find those. Anything that is going to fit in the bottom of your canner. Okay.
And Renee was talking about a recipe, and we recommend, there's several tested recipes. We recommend that you find a tested recipe, and there's several places in which to do that. Don't just go on the internet and find a recipe from somebody. Find one that's been tested. And we recommend the Ball Blue Book. That usually has tested recipes in it. And then this one out of the University of Georgia called So Easy to Preserve, and it's National Food Preservation. And what's the website?
nchfp.uga.edu.
And they have recipes that you can download from their site, but they also sell this book called So Easy to Preserve. You can also go on the USDA's website and get the home canning principles, and you can download that and print that off. So that's 3 places you can find tested recipes. So we've already cooked the chicken. You can do it 2 different ways. You can either what we call hot pack, which is you cook the chicken ahead of time, or you can raw pack it, and that's not cooking the chicken ahead of time. But we decided to do an experiment with, we wondered what it would be like if we can smoke chicken. So this morning we cut up, we put the chicken in the smoker and smoked it just a little bit, because from what I've researched, if you smoke it too much, it's overpowering after you can it. So we smoked it for about an hour, and we brought it up to about halfway of the cooking time, or cooking temperature. So we've got the chicken, and we're just going to go ahead and put those in the jars. Okay.
So while she's doing that, we'll talk a little bit about jars. You want to make sure that you have home canning jars. not like mayonnaise jars or pickle jars or spaghetti jars or anything like that. The jars are not tempered for high temperatures that we'll get in a pressure canner. So you want to, make sure that you use the home canning jars. The lids and the rings, you want to make sure that, you have new lids. You don't want to reuse them and everything, and I know there's kind of a shortage at this point where you can't find them and everything, and that is due to the manufacturing and the, the plant closing down through COVID. So, and then the rings you can use over and over and over again, and until they become rusty or bent. And then you don't want to use those anymore. And the only purpose that the ring does is to hold that lid in place on the jar. The lid has a plastisol. This red here, and that is what is the sealing agent on the jar. So once these are in the pressure canner, everything is going to get real hot and cause this to soften, and it will form the seal around the top of the jar. So that ring is going to hold that lid in place. And then when we take it out, we'll let it cool for 12 to 24 hours and then remove the ring. It's always good to make sure you label your jars as to what it is and what year. We may think, well, I'm going to remember that. I'm glad that your memory is better than mine. That's all I can say. So the head space, which is the amount of space left at the top of the jar for the meats, is 1 1/4 inches with the meat and with the broth that we're going to add to it. So Jimmy is using the funnel to load the meat in there. The chicken.
Yeah, and you don't have to, you could cook it if you want to, or you can raw pack it, either one.
Raw pack means you're just going to put the raw chicken in there. We've been cutting it up into like chunks, and you would do that with the raw. You could probably do strips of chicken, like chicken tenders, and you can do beef. Do it either in strips or in chunks, or even ground beef and fry it up. You just want to get most of the grease out of it, because the grease can come up on the jar and get underneath the lid and keep it from sealing. So, and chicken is so handy, to do, and as with probably any meat, if your family's a meat lover family. So, but with chicken, you were talking about that you had never thought about doing chicken before, but it is so good to have handy for like a chicken pot pie, a chicken casserole, chicken quesadillas, chicken tacos, a chicken soup, a chicken salad, and chicken stew if you wanted to. So, and it's just so, handy just to be able to open a jar and add it to, your other ingredients. So rather than having to cook your chicken and then fix your recipe. So
what if I wanted to make a stew or a soup that's got a combination of meat and vegetables? Is that a problem? Can I can that, or is there
Good question.
issues with that?
just find a recipe that is tested. You can definitely do it. And I think one of the handouts that Jimmy has for you has got like a chicken soup or a chicken stew in it. So the reason that I do mine separate is just so that if I decide to do like a chicken taco, I don't have all those vegetables in it. But you could definitely do it.
So is it important to use a recipe just because there could be a problem? I mean, I know, like, for example, I saw something that said you shouldn't try to can like a butternut soup because it's too thick. So is there a problem with that?
Yes, because of the heat penetration, it doesn't get to the center for, the length of time. The National Center for Home Food Preservation from the University of Georgia, they do all the testing for all the recipes, for all the new gadgets that come on the market. So they make sure that everything is safe and it gets to the correct temperature. So that's why it's, important that you follow a tested recipe rather than, XYZ recipe off of ABC website. So
you mentioned that you cook that halfway up to the temperature. So would your recipe tell you you're going to cook this to this temperature?
Doesn't it? The So Easy to Preserve website says to cook it 2/3 done. 2/3 done. So you have to know that chicken at doneness is going to be 165. So and she cooked it to 150.
150. Because we smoked it and cooked it to 150. So we thought we'd try this and see. You'll have to let us know how it works. So because we smoked this and didn't cook it in a pot, we didn't have a lot of broth. And so I just bought some commercial chicken broth to add to that. So that one probably needs to go over there.
That's robbing from Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
But you can do raw meat.
You can. If we were doing raw chicken, all we would do is prepare the chicken, cut it up in pieces of whatever, and then put it in there with no added liquid. And then in the processing, it would create some of the juice as it's cooking.
Oh, so you would not put water or anything?
You would not put water in it. So, again, you could season it with flour. I'm sorry, not flour. Salt, or whatever you wanted to.
We did not season the chicken when we smoked it this morning. So it is not seasoned, and the broth that I've got here that I added to is less sodium.
So Jimmy also made a broth using vegetables, just as doing those. And
so, that's another way you could do it, is you could add
you'd be getting some of the nutrients from your vegetables that way also.
I may have got that one too full.
We'll get a spoon and.
So you're doing it right up to the bottom line of the.
Yeah.
Okay.
You measure your head space from the top of the jar down.
Okay.
So that shoulder there, that rim, is about 1 inch. So if it's down another 1/4 of an inch.
Okay.
And that's just to keep it from, boiling out.
Okay.
After she gets all the jars filled, we'll take a damp paper towel and wipe the edges just to make sure that there's no chicken particle or anything there that would prevent the lids from sealing. And then we'll put the rings on, and the rings are put on just hand tight. So you don't want to wrench them on really tightly because there may be air bubbles in there that we don't see that doesn't come out when she runs the bubble wand around, and those need to escape. So the amount of head space at the top, it determines, the processing time. The other thing is, if you don't have a bubble wand, if you've got a plastic picnic knife,
Okay.
you can use that. You just don't want to use metal because metal could scratch the inside of the jar, which could damage it, and you don't want that to happen. So
for vegetables, the recipe usually calls for putting boiling water or to fill up the liquid in the jar. But I guess, is it for meat specifically, or really just?
you can this could be hot directly out of the pot. She prepared it this morning
Yeah,
and
it
had.
doesn't have to be hot apparently.
No, and what's going to happen is we're going to put it in the canner, and I'll slip over to turn the canners on, just so that the water in there is heating. If this was boiling hot, then we would want the water in the canner to be comparable to the temperature of the chicken and the broth in the jars.
Okay, you want to do this and I'll turn the stove on.
Okay.
Okay, so if you're cold packing it, you don't want your water hot when you put the jars in?
No, not really, because if we were to put cold jars in hot boiling water, yes, it could break. So I'm going to take the bubble one and go around and release the bubbles that's in there. And you can see them bubbling up. I'm sorry you all don't have smell-o-vision back there because the smells good. The smoked chicken.
So you could also do this with cooked chicken that you buy from like Ingles when you buy the whole bird and put it in there like that? That's interesting to know.
Yeah. I have a friend in Henderson County that can tell you when every store puts their chicken marked down. So, and then she'll go and buy it, and you know, of course, she uses it for their own family use.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing about this magic wand here is, especially if you've got it hot, you can reach down in here and get the lid and the thing at the same time.
So we're going to screw these on just hand tight.
So what if I had something that would completely fill the jar? If you just can't can it, or if you have more headspace than recommended?
If you have more headspace than recommended, a lot of times the jar may not seal because of the headspace. The food at the top may turn dark, and you know, it could spoil. So in a case like that, you might want just to put it in the refrigerator or in the freezer.
I mean, that's what I've been.
So the directions on the box for the lids is just to wash them and rinse them in hot soapy water. And you know, I've just done this, put this in a bowl of water. I like to put it in a baking pan just to kind of contain it and contain the mess. I'm not always the neatest canner.
And we're going to move over to the stove area.
So this is on there, it's locked down. There's little catches here that is caught on the bottom. And then these large bolts are going to fold up and you screw them down really tightly. I'll go back. Okay. So what we're going to do is heat this, and when the water starts boiling on the inside, it's going to start driving the steam out. And it will come out here, and we want to vent it for 10 minutes to drive all of the air out so that we're building up steam and pressure on the inside. So once 10 minutes has passed, we'll fold this down, and then it will start building the pressure. And then you can see it with the dial. The needle on the dial will start to go up. And we'll do it at 11 pounds for 90 minutes. It's an hour and a half. So we've got some steam coming out. And we're going to spin it for about 10 minutes. So the dial gauge canner lids you need to have tested every year. So bring it to Jimmy, and she has the canner lid tester that, you know, just to make sure that it's calibrated, you know, right. I also recommend, if you have to get a new gauge for it, to bring the new one in and have it tested also.
So your jars are in the canner, and they'll have water on the top. So you want to lift that jar up, over, and down. You will have a tendency to want to do this, get the water off of it. Don't do that. Because you could tilt that enough, and if they're not completely sealed, the juice could run up under the lid and cause it not to seal. So the next thing to do is just lift it up, over, down. Just something that usually we have a towel down here or some sort of heating pad so that you know, not scorching your counters, but that's what you do. And that usually comes in that kit with the wand and the phone.
And if your stove vent hood is low, you know, and you can't lift it up and over without tilting it, slide your canner to a surface, you know, to a trivet or something that you can do it. Because, you know, like with tomato juice or something like that, you know, that round seal, that plastisol doesn't really harden until it starts cooling down. And if you lift it and tilt it, then that is going to allow maybe some of that tomato juice, pulp, or whatever to get underneath there and prevent it from sealing. This is up to actually probably about 13. I've started the timer, I've turned the stove down, and we'll keep an eye on it just to make sure that, you know, it doesn't get too low. It's going to take about 30 to 45 minutes. So now, that is all, unless you all have questions. Jimmy, you've got the evaluation, don't you?